Sean Diddy Combs.
My name is Diddy, y'all, and I throw the hottest parties in the whole wide world.
Puff, Puff Daddy, Diddy, Love.
His real name is Sean Combs.
A groundbreaking, trend-setting business mogul, estimated to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Diddy had you money.
To visualize this, I've got my handy tower of fame here to keep track of how he built a career that later tumbled.
Diddy need his ass beat if
Diddy has been officially sentenced to 50 months in prison.
I think it's over. He should just retire.
Welcome to Fallen Star. On today's episode, we're tracking the meteoric rise and fall of Sean Combs. But before we can get to the peak of his power, we have to go back in time to the base. Let's start with one. Sean John Combs was born in 1969 in Harlem to Melvin Earl and Janice Combs. His father was a small-time hustler and drug dealer, connected to the Harlem-based kingpin Frank Lucas. The extent of their relationship is something Sean has taken issue with.
No, my father never worked for Frank Lucas. Like, they had their own individual crews.
But according to Frank Lucas himself, their relationship was more concrete.
Me and Melvin Combs were good friends. We did a lot of business together.
Whatever their relationship was, Sean was determined to not follow in his father's footsteps after his dad was killed in a botched drug deal.
I decided to embrace the entrepreneurial spirit of my father, but in an honest way.
Sean's mother moved the family to Mount Vernon, New York, just outside of the city, where she raised them as a single mother, and she was highly influential in his life.
My biggest inspiration is my mother.
His mum was the queen. I really liked her. Janice Combs. And there was never any talk of the father. Diddy was born like baby Jesus from an immaculate conception. It was the two of them. That was the family. They were so close, it was almost at times a little awkward.
That's my mother. Yeah.
They would kiss on the lips, they would hug, and she loved him. She is the reason he became Puffy. She told him he could fly. It doesn't surprise me that he became such a success when you see where he came from.
It was in Mount Vernon that Sean started to go by Puffy because he would huff and puff when he was angry. That's also where his interest in music began. After graduating high school, Sean began studying business at Howard University in Washington, D.C., where he gained a celebrity-like reputation for organizing rap parties. Okay, so it's time to add some blocks to our Diddy Tower. We've got a pretty good base here. Somebody who has a hustler mindset, he's a good marketer, he's at an HBCU, Howard University in DC, doing all the right things, having a party. He loves his mama. Love that. We'll give him 3 rows on our tower. While Diddy was in school in DC, another rapper and producer from Mount Vernon named Heavy D secured an interview for Combs at his label Uptown Records.
I came across Uptown Records around the time when Heavy D was big. It was the Uptown's Kickin' It music video that really got me interested. They're in this boardroom and the artists are coming in and they're doing their thing, and the whole rebellious, outspoken form of hip hop. I wanted to kind of spread that message, and I think Uptown Records was really good at that. They didn't have only just straight up hard MCs, they had a little R&B mixed in there, they had the hip hop in there, and it was a nice combination to see where they were going with it.
Diddy would commute from DC to New York bright and early on Thursday mornings and be back in school in time for his parties on Friday night. While at Uptown Records, Diddy started throwing parties under the brand Daddy's House at the Red Zone, a club that hosted some of the best hip-hop acts in the city.
The party scene in the earlier days of hip hop in the 90s was very much a hustle. You didn't have social media, you just kind of had flyers and word of mouth. It took a lot of physical hustle, handing out flyers, and really trying to set yourself apart from everybody else that was throwing parties. What Diddy did was he gave everybody a sense of fear of missing out. Diddy's parties were like, oh my God, like this person's gonna be there, this celebrity's gonna be there, this is gonna be the event of the century. So it made that fear of missing out, had people coming, lining up, trying to get in because they wanted to be seen. And Puffy's name was starting to grow.
His daddy's parties positioned Diddy not only in a place to showcase new talent, but also generate money. And at this point, Sean had been promoted to the director of artists and repertoire inside Uptown, a coveted position in charge of discovering and signing new talent. Diddy had started working with Jodeci and Mary J. Blige and taking on a larger role within the company, with respected Uptown executive Andre Harrell describing Diddy as his protege.
And then he's passing on to, I guess, his son. Protege. Yes, Puffy.
Okay, it's time to add more blocks. We've got Diddy really making a name for himself in the hip-hop community. He's an it person in the hip-hop scene. And at this point, you can tell that Diddy not only has his sights set on the music, but a lot of money as well. And for that, he gets 3 more rows. In December 1991, Heavy D and Diddy organized and promoted a charity basketball game at City College. It's estimated that 5,000 people showed up to attend the game in a stadium that held half of that. Chaos ensued and 9 people were crushed to death in the stampede.
He didn't expect so many people to show up, and they did. And because they had that fear of missing out, things got a bit out of control. That's when I started to have Diddy on my radar and started to wonder, what's this guy about? You know, why are so many people just hypnotized by his presence?
After the event, Diddy was said to be on an indefinite suspension from Uptown. Clearly, this was not a great look for anyone involved. A judge declared that Diddy and Heavy D were half responsible for the tragedy, and they settled out of court with one of the victims' families, claiming they received $40,000. Soon after the City College stampede, Diddy was fired from Uptown Records. Now, there's a lot of speculation why exactly this was, but the most supported theory is that Uptown Records simply wasn't big enough for both Harrell's ego and Diddy's ego.
Puff wouldn't really listen to anybody but me, so my full-time job became managing Puff.
Okay, so it's time to start hollowing out some of Diddy's tower. We have a very big ego, which that's pretty bad for the foundation, I think. We have Diddy being a liability. I mean, $40,000 is no small amount to families. You have 9 people dead and it's partially your responsibility. That's not too great. So things seem not to be going very well for Diddy at this point. Out on his own, however, Diddy became even stronger. He formed Bad Boy Entertainment and brought Christopher Wallace, better known as the Notorious B.I.G., to the world's attention.
Biggie gave Diddy a lot of street credibility towards the people who thought, oh, he's fronting. And Biggie was such an artist and lyricist, he gave him that credibility of being an artist. And in return, he got a lot of money. You know, he got exposed to a lot of stuff, a lot of, guys from Brooklyn don't get to see.
Biggie dropped his debut album, Ready to Die, in 1994 to major critical acclaim and financial success. With tracks like Juicy, Big Papa, and One More Chance, by 2018, the album would be certified platinum 6 times. And it revived the East Coast hip-hop scene after it ceded its dominance to West Coast rappers.
The West Coast had hip-hop music in a chokehold. Like, everybody was with Dre and Snoop. Like, they had people on the East Coast wanting to ride lowriders and wear Dickies. So it was interesting to see how things changed because nobody thought that the West Coast would have to share the spotlight with the East Coast again.
Okay, so we definitely need to stack this tower a little higher. He has a lot of entrepreneurial power here. He has his own record label, Bad Boy Records. He signs the Notorious B.I.G., Biggie, who is honestly one of the greatest rappers of all time, arguably, some will say. He gets a lot of credit for that. And Diddy really puts New York back on the map for rap and hip hop. One more. But Diddy wasn't just a suit behind the camera. He was literally out in front of it. Diddy was featured on several tracks on Ready to Die and in Biggie's music videos. Here he is in Big Papa.
How you living, Biggie Small?
Juicy. Warning. And of course, Mo Money, Mo Problem.
I think Diddy was a trailblazer as far as the extravagance. The typical uniform for a rap artist was a hoodie, maybe some army fatigues. Diddy's extravagance came a lot from his uptown Harlem upbringing. You know, a lot of the guys on the streets, they dressed flashy, they drove flashy cars, and Puff was a reflection of that. I don't think anybody ever thought that Diddy was a gangster. They thought he was overboard and he was very extra. So you had people that weren't into all the excess, but they still respected the music because it made them want to dance and have a good time.
This all led to a highly publicized diss by Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight towards Diddy.
Any artist out there want to be an artist, don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the video, dancing. Come to Death Row.
Personally, I think when Suge Knight made the comments at the Source Awards, he was pretty much saying what a lot of people were saying. People jokingly talked about, man, why is Puffy always in somebody's video doing stuff? It kind of took away from the artist that he was putting out. I don't know if it was written in the contracts that I must dance in the video for a specified amount of time. Suge Knight had took that opportunity to throw a jab, and the fallout from it, I think it struck a nerve because it was true.
Later in the ceremony, Diddy tried to lower the temperature.
I would like to say that I'm very proud of Dr. Dre, of Death Row, and Suge Knight for their accomplishments.
Despite the diplomatic efforts by Diddy, both Tupac and Biggie would be killed within a year of each other.
Biggie's death was pivotal to Bad Boy Entertainment's trajectory. This was the first time that we had an incident that went beyond music. You know, you had a violent death in the midst of the chaos of business competition. People took it many different ways. They took it as a jab against the East Coast that we were no longer welcomed on the West Coast.
And at this point, you would think that with Biggie's death, with the East Coast, West Coast feud, that the tower would collapse, but it actually starts to get bigger because this actually gave Diddy a launch pad to go from just an industry whiz kid to really cementing himself as a leading man.
Diddy's name changes. It was a strategy that kept him in the news, that kept people talking about him. He had to have people talk about him. He loved that.
In early 1997, Diddy, who now went by Puff Daddy, released Can't Nobody Hold Me Down that sampled the iconic hip-hop track, The Message.
Don't push us, 'cause we're close to the edge.
He took a song that was talking about, you know, social issues, broken glass everywhere, and turned it into a commercial for himself. You know, I thought it was a disrespect to the message.
Diddy, who had previously been the puppet master behind the scenes, was now shifting to be a frontman with his own hype man, Mace. His debut album, No Way Out, was a huge success, and his single, I'll Be Missing You, sampling The Police's Every Breath You Take, served as a cathartic tribute to Biggie's loss.
Till the day we meet again, in my heart is where I keep you, friend.
Diddy was mainstream. He was featured on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine with the title, The King of Hip Hop. Diddy used his stardom to take his party promoting skills to another level, hosting his first white party in 1998, a Who's Who exclusive invite-only party with the biggest names in Hollywood and big brand sponsorships.
They were really expensive, really over the top, really Great Gatsby type parties, and nobody else was doing that. They were like ridiculous, they were silly. I felt like I was hanging out with Truman Capote in a bygone era. They were great, they were like better than the Met. The point of the white parties was to make Diddy a star. Diddy figured out really, really quickly that he was famous, he had a lot of money, but he didn't have those elite New York snobs that he desperately wanted to have. These parties did that. These parties had people begging to attend. These parties made him, for at least one night, the king, the mayor of New York. Yeah, he made money from these parties. Like, Diddy does not like spending his own money. So Diddy had sponsors on the carpet. He didn't care if Mariah Carey was there. He wanted the business people. He'd take pictures with them. He smelt money.
By 1999, he started dating Jennifer Lopez in a highly publicized relationship. But the higher he climbed, the more he had to fall. Two events rocked Diddy's world that year. In April 1999, Diddy was arrested and charged with 2 felonies for assaulting record exec Steve Stout with a champagne bottle. Diddy would plead guilty to a lesser charge and was sentenced to just a single day of anger management class. In December, at a nightclub in Manhattan, an altercation escalated and a gun was fired, injuring 3 people.
There were guns everywhere. I would see a lot of guns.
Despite a gun being found in the car that Diddy had fled in, he denied the accusations. Diddy and his bodyguard were acquitted of all charges in early 2001, while his up-and-coming talent Shine was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
I think that event really scared Puff. I think for the first time in his life, there were going to be serious consequences. And I think he went into survival mode. I don't think he ever forgot that moment. That was a moment that scared him. I think once you felt that you could lose it all, I think it sticks with you. He always knew after that incident how to make sure he was protected, how to make sure that there was always somebody else around. I don't want to say a fall guy, but people that could help him out of a mess. He had the best lawyers on speed dial. Often, celebrities figure out what a lawyer is when they're in trouble. Puff had got lawyers around him constantly. They were his friends. He hung out with them. They were CC'd on emails. They were CC'd on press releases. They were invited to his parties. So Puff understood the infrastructure of being a celebrity.
So this is a pretty pivotal moment for Diddy. He had lost the beautiful, gorgeous J-Lo, especially after she wore that beautiful green Versace dress. That is the reason that we have Google Images. So for fumbling J-Lo, he gets a block. Actually, no, he gets 2. Okay, and then at this point, he's not a liability just 1 time, but 2 times. That does not really help your reputation. And then Diddy really made a career out of being an A&R, for finding this new talent, for really bringing them up. And then you have Shine, his up-and-coming artist, who gets put away for 10 years. And who knows where Shine's career could have been if that didn't happen. Okay, so things 2001, a little wobbly for Diddy.
When I was with him, there was a dark side to him. He was moody, he was grumpy, he could be very impatient, he could be violent. However, it was probably about 10% of what I saw. As time grew, as his fame grew, as the power he had grew, as the pressure grew, that 10% expanded. I think there's a lot of pressure and fame, and I don't want to be like boo-hoo, poor celebrities. They're all rich and too many people are bothering them. There's a real sense of being watched, of not being prepared for that. Every time you're on a red carpet, there's pressure to perform, there's pressure to be a dancing jester. And so after a while, you get sick of that person. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons Diddy always changed his name. He got sick of these people, so he became a new person.
Once again, however, Diddy reinvented himself, taking on a new name, P. Diddy. He expanded beyond just the music scene. He acted in films like Monsters Ball and even on Broadway in the play A Raisin in the Sun. He ran the New York City Marathon, raising $2 million for charity. His clothing line, Sean John, blew up. He won a 50% stake in Ciroc vodka that turned the brand into a billion-dollar enterprise. He bought fashion label NYC for almost a 1/6 of the price that it had been paid for by Liz Claiborne only 4 years earlier. He was honored with the Global Icon Award at the 2023 VMAs, basically a Lifetime Achievement Award where he performed a medley of his biggest hits and got all the praise. Diddy was getting his flowers, and he appeared to be Midas. Everything he touched turned to gold.
He would never, ever accept a deal at face value. He'd say, why don't we own the company together? Why don't you cut me in? If you cut me in, I'll carry this booze everywhere. I'm going to be on the red carpet next week at MTV. I'll carry the booze down the carpet. I'm going to be on Jimmy Fallon in a couple of nights. Why don't I give Jimmy a bottle of that booze? And so he always knew how to not only expand a deal, but to make sure that he became the center of it. I used to joke that he could shrink to fit. If Puffy needed to be a square to fit a square hole, he'd be a square. If Puffy needed to be a circle, he'd be a circle. If Puffy needed to be a Republican, he'd be a Republican. You get what I'm saying? It was a real skill. Like, you know, I think it's easy to say this is pushy, or this is vulgar, or this is rude. I don't think that that's the case. I think it's brilliant. I think he is a marketing, a PR genius. And if I was successful at all in that field, it's because I learned at the feet of Puffy.
So Diddy has it all, basically. He's getting his flowers, his Lifetime Achievement Awards, all of his hard work throughout the years. He has a fashion brand. He has Ciroc. He has investments. By now, he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, multiple houses, a family. He has his daughters, his sons. He rebrands to not only Diddy, but Love. So here we have Diddy's very high career, and while there are some holes from the outside, it seems like everything's going really well. But, you know, looks can be deceiving, and one push is all it takes. But then in November of 2023, Diddy's ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura filed a bombshell lawsuit, claiming he raped and physically and mentally abused her, and even forced her to have sex with male prostitutes to fulfill his sexual fantasies. They settled outside of court the next day. This prompted a criminal and federal investigation into Diddy's businesses and lifestyle. His homes in Los Angeles and Miami were raided, and by September of 2024, Sean Diddy Combs was behind bars, charged with RICO, sex trafficking, and prostitution. The trial was a media circus. From the first day of jury selection in May 2025, reporters, supporters, protesters, and influencers lined up outside of the Manhattan courthouse for a front row seat to the biggest case in entertainment history. Behind closed doors, ex-girlfriends, assistants, associates, and male prostitutes gave emotional and at times disturbing testimony of a pattern of control and abuse. But after 13 hours of deliberation, facing the rest of his life in jail, Sean Combs was found guilty of just one charge of transportation to engage in prostitution.
When Cassie sued, I thought she was a gold digger, and I believed the Diddy spin, that this is somebody that was after his money. And it wasn't until that tape was released. Did I change my mind? I feel really foolish now. I was doing TV shows and I was quasi-defending him. I was saying that the side of Diddy that I saw was not that Diddy. And I didn't believe that other side existed until I saw that tape.
So this trial exposed a lot. I was in the courtroom on some days and saw a lot of testimony. You see photos of Cassie Ventura with bruises on her eyes, bruises on her body. How could anyone forget the video of them at the Intercontinental Hotel where he chases after her and beats her? This all, despite everything he's done for hip hop, for music, has damaged his reputation, potentially beyond repair.
Peak Diddy is right now, and there's a sick, perverse part of Puffy that is enjoying what is happening right now. He is now the most talked about person in the world. He always wanted to be on the nightly news. He always wanted to be on the cover of the newspapers. And do you know how he got it? Through this trial. Not through music, not through promotions, not through deals with Ciroc. He got it through this. And so there's a sickness, I know this man, that he finally got what he wanted for not the reason he wanted, but he now is what he always wanted to be, the most famous person in the world. I think this is the peak of what he would consider success, which is attention. Diddy not only can recover, he will recover. You saw it outside the trial. I went down to the trial. And there was a lot of fans outside screaming and shouting and had more passion to him than I've seen in maybe 10 years. He has energized his base. He will play a racial element to this and get people very, very excited. He won't stop, he can't stop. He will be back at Madison Square Garden. I'm hearing rumors of tour plans already. There'll be a documentary that's made. He'll turn this into a movie. He doesn't feel the emotions we do. He doesn't have the shame that we do. And so he's gonna figure out how to make this a plus. As sick as it is, he's gonna figure out how to make this a plus.